Welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show. If you are tired of chasing buy-in, frustrated with teams who can't seem to get on the same page, or over the constant struggle of holding people accountable without micromanaging, this is the show for you. I'm Casey Watts, speaker, author, and the creator of the Clarity Cycle Framework. I help leaders just like you take teams from frustration to alignment so teams can work collectively toward a common purpose in a committed way instead of against each other as though they are functioning in different organizations. And we do it all through the craft of clarity. Whether you lead from the middle or you are the front-facing leader of your organization, on this show, we bring clarity to the seemingly small things in leadership that make the biggest difference, because clarity precedes capacity. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's episode.
I don't hear you.
Hey, everybody. What? That's never happened. I'm going to say it's an issue with my platform, but we're going to pretend that you could hear me in the beginning. And I was like, hey, everybody, welcome to another show. I'm so excited to talk about this topic. Those were the things that I said. We are diving into this conversation about why people are so difficult and what you can do about it. We're really going to be diving into clarity of communication. I have Crystal Atkinson with me. Crystal, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, me too. And tell us a little bit about who you are, the work that you do.
Sure. As you said, I'm Crystal Atkinson. I come to you from Alberta, Canada, and I have been working in public education for about 23 years now, all different roles: teacher leader, school-based administrator, division principal, and I'm currently an instructional coach. So I do that full time. I also facilitate professional learning across the province of Alberta through our provincial union. And on the side, I do leadership-specific coaching and training in one-to-one settings, as well as small group, small leader, little PD sessions, if you will, little workshops for them. So a little bit of everything.
Awesome. And if you guys don't already know, and you're going to go down to the show notes to check this out, but Crystal is very active on LinkedIn. And one of the things that she talks a whole lot about is communication and how we can communicate with others. And I loved when we were talking about you coming on the show, and I always have a form that potential guests fill out. So they tell like what topic they think could be a good fit for this podcast. And Crystal's topic, I don't even remember in everything that it says, but here's the thing that I remember most is why people are so difficult. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's a perfect topic, because we all deal with that. And yes, the problem is we don't always know how to deal with that. So I'm excited to dig into it. Yeah.
That was the first thing I noticed when I became a school-based administrator, is you have to deal with difficult all the time. And yes, you've got big ideas, you've got mission, vision, values, you have all the things, but those day-to-day conversations, nobody can really prepare you for. And so year after year, I would write, I want to build better connections. I want better conflict resolution. I want all of these goals. And they were all the same. They were all about communication. And I kept being told by superintendents and other principals, you'll get it. It just kind of happens. And I just thought, no way, there must be a better way to this than just, it will happen. So became very intentional about learning about it.
Yeah. And to your point, it will happen, but we have to be intentional about practicing specific strategies and implementing tools in order to make it happen. So I'm pumped about this because I know you're going to share a little bit about that. So, the show is all about bringing clarity to the seemingly small things that make a really big difference. And I'm so curious about a time maybe that you've had where you either lacked clarity or you had impeccable clarity and how it impacted you?
I think for myself, it was the early years of being a vice principal. I was a vice principal in a K-6 school as well as a grade 7 to 9 school. And it was when I had somebody enter my office who was either angry or they didn't like my decision or they just had those really big feelings. And I didn't know how to best approach them. I could listen to people and I had a few things and fumbled along, but I did not have clarity on how do I actually support this person of like dysregulation in an adult body. I could do it with kids all day long, but how do I take them from that to a place of level-headedness and calmness and able to open up just their own minds into whatever a potential solution could be? And I just felt so confused and muddled about the whole process. I knew I had to do it. I just didn't know how to do it. So that was, man, those first couple of years I wish I could have back.
Yeah. Girl, you're preaching to the choir. I cannot tell you the number of times. And I remember when I was not yet an instructional leader. I was a classroom teacher, but I remember moving into a teacher leader role. And one of the things that was on my plate was being a sponsor for some school function or some group or organization. And something didn't go the way that I wanted it to go, or I didn't agree with the decision that was being made. And my stubborn self, I am so ashamed to tell you guys this, but I'm just laying it out there. And I want to remind everybody, at the time, I was probably 24, maybe 25. So brain development, I probably wasn't quite mature just yet. But I remember stomping and jumping up and down in front of my principal because I did not agree with the decision that was made. I cringe thinking about that. It was not handled appropriately. There are several other times, but you learn over time, and I hope that I hope I'm not alone in that.
Yeah,
Maybe I am alone.
definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not proud of that. So what exactly are we bringing clarity to today?
If your audience could leave with a couple of really quick ideas as to how to best approach those next tricky situations, because it's really the tricky ones, right, that leave us up at night with our tummies in turmoil and just like feeling nauseous as we know this meeting is approaching. If your audience could leave with a couple of skills to know when I do this, this is what I can do to help manage that situation, we're going to call that a win.
I love it. So let's dive in because we have this titled, Why Are People So Difficult? I want you to talk about that specifically. When we talk about people being difficult, or if someone comes to you and says, I don't know how to deal with difficult people, what's your first response?
The reason somebody is difficult is because their communication style is typically the opposite of our own. And so when we consider what is communication, well, it's giving and receiving information. And we have this idea, especially as teachers, that everybody is like us. Because as a teacher, you are that person in the front of the room of your 20, 30, 40 students, and you're used to having the answers, and you're used to people following along relatively along the path that you want them to do. And then what happens is we think, because we're lifelong learners and we've done well with students, that we can go into a student support role or an instructional coach role or an administrative role, and it's going to be the same. And those same colleagues who were easy to deal with as colleagues all of a sudden bring resistance. They bring resistance to your ideas. They bring resistance to your feedback. And if you're at all like me out there, it kind of throws you off a little bit because you're not used to people being that resistant. But it's because our communication styles are different. We have different values. That's the important work about doing values with your school. It isn't to have something on the wall. It's so that we have this common understanding of this is who we choose to show up as. This is who we choose to show up as. And then once we discover that, okay, people are different, but they're predictably different from ourselves, and we start to gain these little tools to help us along the way, all of a sudden, it's kind of like if you're at the zoo. I was just at the zoo with my nephew this weekend, and you see this big cat walk by behind a bush, and the cat's orange and it's got some black stripes. You probably don't need to see the whole animal to know that it's a tiger, right? Or if you see this like shape kind of looks like a pony and it's white, but all of a sudden you see these black stripes on it, you know it's a zebra. You don't need to see the whole animal. And that's true for people as well. People fall into two big categories and then four little categories under that. And once you discover that, you can identify it so quickly that when you go into those conversations, those other adults feel supported because you see them for who they are and you're able to give them the type of communication they need to move forward in a way that feels safe.
Yeah. Everything that you're talking about, I know takes some intentional time and energy at the
Mhm.
beginning of the school year, and not just once, but probably multiple times and in multiple different ways. I
Mhm.
would love to hear your thoughts about that.
In the beginning, I said leadership really takes place in those everyday conversations. And they truly do. When I was at my elementary school as a vice principal, I did morning bus supervision. So here in Alberta, we've got our rural kids who come in on buses and our urban kids who come in, usually walk or families will drop them off. And so the principal and myself greeted every single student off of the bus. And we did that so that we could build that connection, that eye to eye. You can start to see if a student is going to be off. When a parent comes in and you can see their body language as either being frazzled or angry or whatever it may be, you're able to be that first voice to say, I see you. I see you. And then when you walk the hallways, you can have, I think you were talking about LinkedIn earlier, and I think I had a post something along the line of face-to-face good morning feels so different than an open door policy on an email. So when we
Mm,
meet our people where they're at, you get to know the temperature of your building. You walk through a wing and you look at them and you say, I see you. How are you today? How is that spicy one?
mhm,
How
mhm.
was your sleep last night? And you really can be proactive about reducing any conflict moving forward because you are present. That presence really is priceless.
Yeah. So you are, and I want to be sure that we are understand or really grasping this. What
Mhm,
you are bringing up, Crystal, is the importance of proactive
mhm.
efforts. Like, be proactive as possible. That is one way that you can, for lack of a better word, handle, or I guess handle yourself. That's the
Mhm.
way I want to say that. Handle yourself when you're engaging with difficult people. So those proactive
Absolutely.
strategies are so crucial.
Yeah.
What else? Like, how do you, because you mentioned really understanding others' communication styles and recognizing, like, we have the assumption that other people are like us, but we
Mhm.
have to break down that assumption and realize everyone is different for great reason. I don't want a whole
Right.
bunch of me's around the campus. We want to be
Yes.
proactive, but then how do we get to know communication styles so that when we do have those interactions that seem difficult, it's not as challenging?
Okay. Let's break it down into just two groups of camp, if you will. All people will lean into one of two methods of communicating how they like to receive information, how they like to give information, and what they prioritize. And that is simply people who are task driven first. Those are the people who get stuff done, or they're like the quality control people. If you give them a report to do or a grant to apply for, like that that's perfect, right? Like you're not going to need to double check it. It is perfect. So you've got those task driven people. Those are often the people that when you're in education, you're uncomfortable with dealing with them because those people are often either really direct or they want a lot of detail. So if we take the task, I'm going to break it down into 2 more, because those task people are often the trickier ones. That's why I want to start there. So as soon as I know that they're coming into my office or they're walking down the hallway and they're very pointed in their questions, Crystal, is this, or this happening? They want to know, is this, or this happening? They don't care about your kid's soccer game last night. They're not interested in doing a sound bath. They're not interested in all the feels. They are there to do a job and do it well. They're very, very direct. So you know that right away. And when you know that person is task driven, they're either going to ask direct questions or they're going to ask for detail. You need to match what they're giving you. So if they're asking you a direct question, give them a direct answer. If they're asking you specific questions, you have 1 or 2 choices. You either give them the answer if you have it, or you give them a time that you will get them the answer, because so often we don't have those answers. So if they're wanting to know, is maintenance coming to do my smart board this time or this time, and you don't have the answer, you can tell them, I will let you know within 24 hours. So you've still answered them, but you've answered them with a timeline. So those are our task people. And when we think of teachers and teacher leaders, we're usually in the other camp, and that's people. So, and it makes sense, right? Like, we're in human services. Often nurses also fall into the same. I've worked with a lot of police officers as well. They're very direct and they're like to the point. They don't want the fluff. They don't want to read your blog article. Just tell me what to do in bullet form, please. If they're going to read your email, do not send me, your whole thesis. Just tell me 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Most teachers, being in the human field, they are people first. You generally need to check in with their heart first. How are you doing? And listen to how they are doing, right? Anything around what's best for kids. They are going to be really in tune with making people feel safe. Teachers overall don't like big change. So if you know there's a deadline approaching, if you know you have a guest speaker, you want to let your teachers know that well in advance. But you're going to know if they're a task first or a people first by how they address your interaction. Same as an upset parent. If a parent comes in and they begin by talking about the emotions of their child, they're probably a people first person. If they come in asking you about how their individual support plan is going to prevent them from getting into post-secondary, they're task first. They're not interested in the heart of their child. They want to know, are they going to be able to do A, B, or C? So when we match their energy, we match their questioning style with whatever they give to us, we're going to mirror that back. They instantly fall back. Their shoulders instantly drop, and they understand, okay, she understands that I really care about these people, or I really care about that sense of belonging. Because most people, they're going to be in one of those 2 camps, and then it just falls into 2 camps under those. And we're all a combination of them at different times for different reasons.
Yeah. You mentioned the term mirroring, to mirror them. So that's appropriate no matter who you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
And so that could be a good way to think about this, is I want to be able to mirror their communication style. Yeah. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious. Let's just assume that someone gets into a situation where, and I did a podcast episode about this recently, where it's a difficult conversation, it's a difficult situation, difficult person, whatever it might be. You start the conversation and then you blank. Like, what would you suggest if you start to get frazzled in that moment? What are some ideas that you have?
Absolutely. We all have fight, flight, or freeze. Every human being, that is hardwired into us. I generally can be a freezer, mostly. My husband's the fighter. He's got those comebacks right away. We're all wired differently. It is so important, especially as a leader, when you have somebody with a big emotion coming into your space, that you press pause. You have to give yourself a few deep breaths to really reset your brainstem, get that clarity of thought, and then lean in with curiosity. Lean in and ask a question. And when I started down the path of leadership, I thought, can you just give me a checklist of questions? But what I learned is that checklist of questions, they may be good for robots, but for real human beings, I just need to have a real conversation and see them where they're at. So if they come in and they're angry about something, I don't need to agree with them to validate their feelings. I don't need to agree with them, but I can say, I can see you're really upset about this. Let's talk about what you think the best case scenario solution would be. What would that look like to you? And listen to it. Try to get a sense of the direction that adult is going. Often, it's going to go back to that. Are they task or are they people? They're coming in because they feel like there's a competency issue or there's a conduct issue or something that task oriented that's just not meeting their standard and they want answers about it. Or it's like this values or this personality. And those people oriented people, they need us to lean in and acknowledge that we see the human behind the scenario. They need us to just pause. And so when we freeze, we can pause and say, I just need a moment. Okay. Yep. Can you just clarify for me? I can see you're really upset, and I completely understand that. Can you clarify for me what that looks like to you? And just give them space. When we give others space, they will open up. They will give us direction. But we need to be brave enough to lean in and just get curious. What are you feeling? What do you think success looks like? Got a little bell.
Did you hear my phone going off?
I just heard a little bell. It's all good.
Oh, okay, great. Whew, yes. Okay. So I want to talk more about that. So first of all, we've already talked about mirroring, and that what you just shared is a fantastic example of trying to mirror what like their communication style, but then taking it a step further, especially in those moments where it feels you feel conflicted or you're not quite sure, like, oh, I don't know really how to respond. That's okay. Pause. Give yourself that time and space. Even let them know. Like, I think it's okay to say, give me a moment. I want to think about this for just a second. Take that moment, even if you need some deep breaths. And if you still don't know what to say, still lean in with curiosity, because what we can do is say, like, describe what it is we're recognizing. So I can see this. I can see you're feeling this, or it seems as though you are feeling XYZ. I like to follow that up with, am I accurate about that, or am I off base? And then we can probe for, like, tell me more about. Let me ask you this. Would it be appropriate? So if we know that oftentimes we get into these situations, do you think it would be okay to rehearse, like set aside for yourself a few different statements that you can rehearse that can become habitual for you, that you can use in these situations? For example, tell me about, or tell me more about.
Absolutely. Having a few of those sentence starters is going to help you practice taking control over your own emotions and your own brain response when you're in those challenging situations. So simple items like, I can see you are feeling. Can you tell me more about this? What do you think a potential solution is? Brene Brown says, paint it done. Paint it done. What does that end product look like for you? You can also be really clear if you know this is a big topic, and we have ranges of conflict or problems that we need to solve. If you know that it's something beyond this one and done meeting, you can set your boundaries around the meeting. You can say, I have 20 minutes, and it's really important in these 20 minutes that I understand what it is you need. I can understand what it is that is upsetting you. And then you're able to then go away and have that 24 hours to reflect on it and to come up with potential solutions. Generally, if they're people first, they want to co-create solutions. because that's the nature of people who like connections. People who are people first, they want to be a part of those solutions. And then
Yeah.
people, if you have an adult coming in with those big, they're really direct and they kind of feel scary for a lot of people, or they ask a lot of detailed questions, you can let them know that I'm not going to have all the answers today. But what I am going to do is give you my undivided attention to listen to your concerns so that I can address them accurately. Because the last thing I want to do is give you information that may not be right.
Mm. Those are great, great, great phrases to anchor to. If you're listening to this episode, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to this again and jot down those things that Crystal just mentioned, because I don't know that we give enough credit to those kinds of anchors, like the
Mhm.
rehearsal piece of
Mm.
leadership. And rehearsal is where it's at. You've got to get the reps in if
Yes.
you are going to make this just a habit of quality leadership. Okay, you do a lot of work, like you mentioned. I feel like in a recent LinkedIn post, you mentioned something about resistant teachers
Mhm.
and where, and or maybe where resistance sometimes comes from. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think that was my biggest surprise when I went into school-based leadership. I went in with this assumption that all teachers are on board to try new things and to learn new skills, and we're okay with being vulnerable. And I was so wrong. What I discovered is that teachers actually don't like change, mostly. Teachers mostly, it really does depend on which division you're in. Younger divisions, they're usually pretty used to specialists coming in and out, whether it be occupational therapy, speech language. So they're generally more open to somebody coming along and saying, oh, I need you to try these things. Once you get to about grade 4 or 5 up here, I find that happens less and less. And so teachers are used to working in isolation. And so then what happens is you have a new, might not even be new, but you have an initiative, or you have a data sample that needs to be gathered, or something that just needs some tweaking. And usually it's those direct people or people who like detail who dig their heels in. And what they're actually doing, this is what we can do if we're open to it. What they're actually doing is checking quality control for us. And that's really important, because if you're a fast moving leader, if you're somebody who's good with conflict or good with, we'll try it. If it doesn't work, we'll just try something new. If you're good with that fast pace, you need to understand that most of your staff is not. It's just in numbers. When it comes down to personality types, especially in teaching, most teachers are not okay with that change. And so you get those resistors because they're comfortable. They may have seen results. They don't trust that your new way is going to help kids. It's not going to be as good as what they have been doing for the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so they give us a little bit of a checkpoint. And so as a leader, when you get that resistor, you can just go, okay, this is my checkpoint. And you ask them, what am I missing? Like, it's okay. I'm not here to have all the answers. What am I missing? They're going to tell you what you're missing.
Mhm.
And 9 times out of 10, I don't know the actual number, they're probably right. You probably have not given that thing a lot of thought. And so when you pause and you say, that's a good one. I'm going to need to sit on that for a little bit, and then we're going to have a follow-up conversation, but I need to process that. They slow the impulsive leaders down. And sometimes when you get into leadership because you don't mind change and you don't mind conflict. Not always, but often. And so then you've got your, cheerleader teachers who've been in the building for the last however many years. They've got all the school spirit and they're used to things going a certain way. And you come along and you want to disrupt that. It's just uncomfortable. And people do
Yeah.
not like being uncomfortable.
Yeah. I'm going to hold on to this idea of them being quality control.
Mhm.
So, such a narrative shift, like, and so good to think about, wait a minute, they're bringing up questions and thoughts and concerns because they have the questions and thoughts and concerns that we maybe haven't addressed just yet. So
Right.
I love that. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about any tool, strategy, or resource that can help leaders continue to gain clarity around this idea of community or communication and clarity of communication and working with those difficult people.
So I have a few different things that I do like to share with people. I have a blog, and I think I shared the link that takes you to the actual blog post where I do have some questions that are those quick ones that you can practice, whether you're talking with students, parents, or teachers, because it is different depending on the stakeholder of whom you're talking to. So you are more than welcome to go to that. It's a downloadable right from the blog. That's nice and easy. Lean into asking yourself, are they task first or are they people first? And that one strategy, I would be really curious, listeners, go and try it and then message me on LinkedIn, give it 5 days and say, this tricky staff member, I've started to realize that they just want me to make a decision. And I'm somebody who doesn't like to make decisions quickly. And so instead of passing them off, I've given them a timeline, right? Like those boundaries, but really, really lean into that strategy of, are they task or are they people? And then match that communication. Watch your relationship change over a week or two with those same tricky students, parents, staff. They're all the same. They're all the same. If you wanted something deeper, you can sign up and get a full leadership profile. I'm trained in the Maxwell leadership DISC method. Those are the profiles that I do with leaders. But take some time to really consider, this is who I am and this is what I like. And when somebody's different than me, it isn't because it's better or worse, it's just different. So as a leader, I may value that everybody's on time, they are prepared, their homework's done. And then you get that teacher who always misses a deadline, they're always 3 minutes late, they're always these things. And you are thinking, because again, if we think in terms of opposite, that they're being disrespectful, they're being rude, they're messy, they don't have good quality. But really, in their mind, they got so wrapped up in working on this kid or doing this thing that involved their mind and heart, that was their priority, not because it's wrong, but because they have their priority set on a different value than yours. And when you're finding those things are coming up too much, you likely have a disconnect in your school around your values. And that's why I was drawn to your work, because that clarity in how you present everything in your school is so important. Like it will make or break the improvements and transformations that you can make in your schools. I truly believe in your work.
Yeah. Awesome. That's so fantastic. Guys, listen, you are going to go to the show notes and you're number one, going to connect with Crystal. Number two, you're going to access the resources that are in the show notes. I feel like we could go on. I feel like we could probably have another podcast episode dedicated to some of the things that we talked about specifically. So maybe we can get that in the books for the future. Tell our listeners any last thoughts, any final thing, like something you hope that they take away from this podcast episode.
Friends, everybody can be a leader. Everybody can be a leader. If you're sitting here thinking like I did, I can't be a leader because I put people over policy and I'm not direct enough, we need you in leadership. If you're thinking I might be too direct and my staff is too soft, we need you in leadership. We need diversity in our leadership teams. And you can learn with intention how to best support and create relationships with people who are different than you. And so my advice to you would be, don't be afraid, lean in, get curious, and just press pause. When your brain starts to shut down, press pause, get curious, give yourself a moment, and reflect, mirror the type of communication that the person who's sitting across from you is giving you. It's going to help you. It's going to take away so many conflicts. Just whenever you've got all of those turmoils, it really just helps to smooth the waters, if you will.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much, Crystal, for coming on. Where can people best find you?
Like you said, I'm on LinkedIn, so you'll have, I'm sure, my contact in your show notes, so people can go there. I'm really on all of the social medias. My Instagram is vibrant_leadership. I'm Facebook. It really doesn't matter. I'm in all of those places. I just recently started my own podcast. I was sharing with you earlier, just to put all of my thoughts and resources that I do with clients who I coach one-to-one. I'm just starting to put them onto a podcast. So I'm new. It's not as polished as yours, but I'm learning. I'm failing forward. And so you can also look up Vibrant Leadership for Educational Leaders, but really, like, go to LinkedIn, follow me there, say hi. I'd love to know that you saw me here. And if you've read the book, Clarity, The Craft of Clarity, I'd love to know that too, because I'm like halfway through it and I'm loving it. So like, have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. You're awesome, Crystal. Okay, guys. Thanks for joining tonight's episode, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody. Hey, listener, I am so honored that you listened to today's episode, and I hope you gained something valuable from it. I'd also be honored if you did me 3 solid favors. First, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Second, be sure you're following me on social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with Casey on LinkedIn or Instagram. And finally, if you are looking to book a dynamic and relatable speaker for your next event, conference, or retreat, I would love to bring a message about how the craft of clarity makes a significant impact on both leadership and life. Until next time, always remember, clarity precedes capacity.